Hey guys, I'm Eric with Extreme Terrain. In this video, we're going to do a quick review and install of this Rough Country Pro Series 9,500 pound winch with synthetic line. Now, if you're pretty adventurous with your Jeep, and I know most of you are, I know I am from time to time, and you like to push the envelope a little bit, maybe you get stuck from time to time. Now, one of the best solutions for that is a winch like this Rough Country Pro Series 9,500 pound winch. You should really be checking this out if you're like most Jeep owners out there and you like to push the envelope a little bit when you go off-roading and you find yourself getting stuck from time to time. Now, Rough Country is one of those brands out there that just about everybody has heard of. They make everything from exhausts to suspension components to winches. And I gotta tell you, with this Pro Series winch, they've really upped their game quite a bit. It's really a quality unit. We had a very easy experience installing it on our Gladiator today, and we're gonna show you that here in a minute. But all the fitment and all the wiring is really no muss, no fuss, and its overall quality, I gotta say, is top notch. Now, really what's attractive about this particular winch is that synthetic line. Now, not only is synthetic line overall considered to be quite a bit more stronger than steel cable, it's also a lot safer to use. It has a higher braking strength, but when it does tend to break under load, or if it becomes frayed and damaged and breaks on you when it's under load and you're using it out there on the trails, it doesn't hold as much of that kinetic energy as a much heavier steel cable, so it's safer to be around. Now, it's not to say a synthetic line doesn't hold any kinetic energy at all. You still have to take precautions and be reasonable out there. However, it was overall considered to be much more safer material to work with. Now, speaking of comparing synthetic line to steel cable, there are quite a bit of differences between the two, not just strength, but also weight. And that's really the big advantage that synthetic lines have. Now, the spool of synthetic line that is on this winch that we're working with today weighs only about 4 to 5 pounds total. Now, if you were gonna have the same length of steel cable, you're looking at more like 30 pounds of weight. Plus, not to mention the hidden weight that most people don't think of comes in right here. This Hawes Fair lead on the front is an aluminum piece that only weighs about a pound. Now, the design of that has this nice rounded beveled edges around here, and your line is gonna slide through that without getting snagged. If you're using a steel cable winch, you're gonna be having steel rollers. Now, the steel roller setup weighs about 10 to 12 pounds. So right there, just in this piece alone, you're looking at 10 added pounds, then add in the 30 extra pounds for the steel cable, giving you about 40 pounds of extra weight. And when you're trying to conserve weight, maybe you have a lift on your Jeep and you're trying to maximize your ride height, you don't need that extra weight on the front of your Jeep. One last thing I think is worth considering when you're talking about the weight of synthetic line versus steel cable is not only the weight you're carrying on your Jeep, but consider this. If you get stuck out on the trail and you have to hike uphill to find an anchor point, do you want to be dragging 30 pounds of cable uphill, or do you want to be dragging a couple pounds of synthetic line? Just something to keep in mind. Makes it a lot easier to work with out on the trails. Like I mentioned before, I personally think that Rough Country really upped their game in their design and construction of this unit. It's also IP67 waterproof rated, so when you're out there mud bogging or in heavy rains, you don't have to worry about any of your internal components being damaged and failing on you when you need them the most. With that said, the price on this unit comes in right around $550. Now, for a 9,500 pound winch with a synthetic line, that's a really competitive price, and you'd be hard pressed to find a better package out there on the market right now. Now, as far as the installation goes, we're giving it 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter and say budget about an hour of your time to get this installed. Now, as far as the difficulty meter goes, I'm giving it pretty soft 2 out of 3 wrenches. This unit from Rough Country already comes with most of the wiring done and pretty much all of the assembly done. When we unboxed it, it was in a nice, tight, everything was well put together, and we didn't have to do any extra wiring. The only wiring we had to do to the winch itself is to attach the negative cable, and once you have that attached, you just have the positive and negative cables running into your engine compartment that you connect to the battery. The wiring is very simple. And the other variable you might have is, it really depends on what kind of bumper you're mounting it up to. We're working with a Barricade TrailForce HD bumper today that's designed to accept winches, and it's very easy to bolt onto this bumper. You might have a different experience, especially if it's a bumper that requires you to have the bumper off the vehicle, mount the winch to it, and then mount the combined unit to your Jeep. So your experience may vary a little bit, but with this setup, about an hour of your time is very reasonable in my opinion. So let's take a look at just a couple of tools we're going to need and move ahead with our installation. Okay guys, tools we're going to use for this install are an electric impact wrench, a hand socket wrench, a swivel socket, 13, 16, and 18 millimeter sockets, a pair of pliers, and a 19 millimeter crescent wrench. All right guys, serving as our workhorse for today's installation is our 2020 blue Jeep Gladiator with a Barricade Trailforce HD front bumper. And the first thing we're going to want to do before we get to anything with the winch itself is you're going to want to install your fair lead. It's going to bolt on right here, and it's going to require putting a tool back here. Once the winch is on, it's going to be a little bit tighter working space, so it's a lot easier to do it now without anything getting in our way. So basically in the kit, go ahead and grab the hardware. You have two different size bolts in the kit. The larger gauge bolts are the ones you're going to want to use for this. There's two of them, as well as a flat washer, lock washer, and a nut for each side. So you basically just mount it up, line up the holes, and start a bolt in there. And we'll do the other side. All right guys, what we're going to do here, tighten these up. You're going to need a 19 millimeter crescent wrench for your nut back here and an 18 over on the bolt side. All right guys, and one other thing we're going to want to do before we actually put the winch on the bumper is we need to connect our negative cable. We're going to do that on this post here. It already has a grounding cable attached to it. And we're just going to tighten this up with a 13 mil socket. All right guys, now grab the 4 square nuts that are in the kit. They slide in these little notches right here, and that is what the bolts will thread into to actually mount it to the bumper. All right, and slide the 2 nuts over on the other side, same way as these. All right, now we can go ahead and set our winch in place. All right guys, now we've lifted our Jeep a little bit slightly just to give you a better camera angle on this, but from the underside, just go ahead and check and see that everything's lined up properly. I can see the threads from those nuts that I slid into the bracket on the winch itself. So we're lined up pretty well, so go ahead and start the 4 bolts that you have in the kit along with lock washers and flat washers. All right guys, once you have the bolts started, go ahead and tighten them down. You're going to need a 16 millimeter socket, and working tight up in here, I also have a swivel socket mounted on my impact wrench to get it past this kind of angle right here. All right guys, there's any number of ways you can run the wiring from your winch up into your engine bay here. The only rules of thumb you want to stick to is keep the wiring away from any sources of heat like exhaust headers and away from any moving parts like fan belts or other things that are moving externally on your engine. So just follow those guidelines, you should be good. All we need to do now is attach these cables to the auxiliary posts on our battery. So we're going to do our positive first. We have no shortage of options here. All right, now we'll do our negative terminal I'm using a 13 mil socket. The hardware on your Jeep might be slightly different. All right, last piece of the installation, guys, is we're going to attach our clevis hook. It has this pretty substantial cotter pin in there, so grab a pair of pliers or a wrench. All right, guys, now we're going to do a little demonstration on some of the basic functions of the winch. I always recommend making it a habit to just put some gloves on whenever you're working with winch line, even the synthetic stuff. Now, synthetic is generally safer than steel cable because you don't have to worry about any of the splinters from the cable itself coming off. But if you've already put your synthetic line through some use, you never know what's going to get caught up and snagged up in the fibers of the line, and you don't want to be letting that line go through your hand as you're winching it back in, and all of a sudden something's cutting your hand. So it's always best practice just to put some gloves on. So we'll demonstrate a couple of the basic features here, and we'll show it unwinding, and we'll wind it back up with the power motor. All right, we're just gonna unhook the lead here. Now, in order to pay out some slack, use this handle right here, and whatever direction the handle is pointing in, there's a little arrow icon on the handle itself. Whatever it's pointing in is what it'll do. Now, on the label here it says disengage, and that means once you do this, disengages the gearbox and allows this to roll freely. So obviously if you're gonna winch it back in or roll the line back up, you're gonna put engage like that. But this turns nice and easy, and while it's not very loose as far as unwrapping, it's not hard to pull out. So we're gonna take out some slack. As you can see, the first few feet of this line also has a protective canvas sheath on there. All right, guys, now we're going to demonstrate the use of the controller here. Now, this particular model is the wired controller only. Some other models have wireless control, and those have their pros and cons as well. Pro, obviously, you don't have to worry about running the wire or plugging it in if you get stuck, maybe you're in mud. Having the wireless controller is nice, but you also have to worry about batteries that you have to keep charged or fresh batteries in there. And I have some friends that have also lost their wireless controllers because all it is a unit maybe this big or smaller, and next thing you know, they can't find it or it's buried under a bunch of gear inside their Jeep. So to get it plugged in, it goes in on the side here. Just pop off this rubber protective cover, and you can see the prongs here are in a kind of a triangle pattern. It's real easy. You can't plug this in incorrectly, and that's really a firm connection, which is what you want. You don't want this coming out easily, and you also want a nice tight connection for protection against, if you're wet or mud, you don't want any of that getting in there. Now, with this wired controller, what's really nice too is it's very durable, and you'll feel that when you're holding it. The connections here are very rugged at both ends of the cable, and you get about 11 feet of it. We just measured it, and what that's handy for is a lot of people will do this and basically run it into the cab of their Jeep. And that's a good thing to do if you're out on the trail and you're looking ahead and you see some mud bogs up ahead and you're thinking, okay, I can see us having a winch up ahead here. So you go ahead and lay out your cable and just get ready for trouble. All right, guys, we're gonna run some cable back in. Go ahead and flip it back to engage. All right, guys, now to spool it back up using the electric motor. I'm keeping tension with my left hand here, but I have it a couple of feet out from where it goes in through the fair lead. You don't want to be holding it down here. You don't want to risk anything, your hand getting pulled up in there, getting caught. So just keep it out a couple of feet, and now we'll go ahead and start reeling it in. It's a pretty basic controller, guys. If you want to out a little bit more, you push on the outside, and to reel it back in, just push on the inside. All right, guys, we have it nice and tight up in here, so go ahead and clean up your setup. Disconnect your controller. Plug in the cover, and you're ready to move on. All right, guys, that wraps up this review and install of this Rough Country Pro Series 9,500 pound winch with synthetic line. And of course, for all your off-road needs, check us out here at extremeterrain.com.